CCC Genesis here.
Stop copying my line.
And I am here profiling Ariat's, what is this called again? The Alice Valkyrie deck. Yes, because that's exactly the deck that I'd be doing today. It's not like I'm trying to do any other deck today. Don't trust me. Anyways, so starting off with the ruler, we are looking at Alice the Girl in the Looking Glass. It's very interesting that they have this Alice the Valkyrie have the same ruler side as
Alice the Saint of Looking Glass. It's Saint of Healing, sorry.
Yeah, Saint of Healing.
But it's basically Pandora Light, Pandora Dark.
Which one is it?
Concept.
Who knows? Although it's not nearly as devastating.
Destroy your hand or destroy your board.
Absolutely.
Take your poison.
Both of which, by the way, with these cards, you just pay one blue and one colorless, very cheap, and you can also alternatively tap to add a deep blue the Phantom board to your hand. Flipping her over, big difference. We have Alice the Valkyrie of Fairy Tales, and she does a lot. Right off the gate, the moment she hits field, you can add a Fairy Tale from your deck to your hand. Most often, in this case, it'll typically be something along the lines of Magic Matchstick Girl, pardon me. If we have about 6 mana on field and are ready to throw down a bunch of burn. Or you could also go for Snow White and Cinderella, as they're both really fantastic cards with this card's next effect. Or if you're in deep need of draw, then you can go into Cheshire Cat, tap 1, get what you need. The other effect that makes her very fantastic and powerful is the fact that counters on Fairy Tale cards do not go away. So once suddenly Cinderella becomes an 8/8/2 drop that stays an 8/8/2 drop, and
Snow White keeps snowballing.
Absolutely, just keeps getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And the neatest part about this card, as far as its gods are concerned, is that you pay 1 blue and 1 red, and you can deal 500 damage to a Resonator. That may not seem very great right off the bat, but you can also copy this ability.
Bolt seems pretty powerful in Magic, so why not here?
The thing about this, in particular, is the fact that you can tap 1 to do more, to copy the spell. So if you have like 4 mana open, let's say, you can tap 2 to do the initial 500, and then you can tap 1 to do another 500, and 1 to do another 500. And this skill is actually augmented by Laevateinn. So if you're able to do the double tap during the turn that you're going to use her effect, you can effectively doing about 900 damage for 2, and then 900 damage for 1 after the other, after the other, after the other, effectively clearing an entire board and allowing you to swing if you're able to, actually you'll be able to swing in that first turn once you clear a board with a 1400 Alice with Swiftness. So moving on to the stones, I tried to keep a very large water base. These are going to be the 2 normal stones we're going to see. It's going to be 2 regular old water, because I do run a lot of blue, and I want to make sure that I can always Cheshire as soon as I can. I run 4 light vapor. The only light card I actually run in here is Percival, but I want to make sure that Percival is live ASAP, because I want to go into the deep blue Phantom board as soon as possible without having to sacrifice a stone that isn't taking me a little bit further in the game. And lastly, I run 4 Magic Stone of Hearth's Core, because I also run a decent amount of red, and I also want to make sure that if in whatever scenario I can't get my hands on Deep Blue's Phantom board, I'll be able to keep pounding forward with these stones that I have right here.
Why is there no little redstone in this deck?
Thus far, there's no little redstone in this deck, mostly because I don't have one.
Would you recommend playing it?
I would definitely recommend playing it, because it's just a single stone. You can call what you require, and the fact that it beefs up creatures of that particular type it's great. It's definitely, as it said, one of the best stones that you can have as of right now. All right, going on to the Resonators, I make sure to run 4 Cheshires. Super special thanks to my friend here for letting me borrow these for a little while. Even though I own $15 now, and now the whole world knows it. It's a fantastic 1-drop. being able to draw is great, and the sheer fact of the matter that you might be drawing into the deep blue phantom board is just fantastic, or other key pieces that you require. And the fact that you can add it to your hand if you need to with Alice of Valkyrie, it's great. Also, she's a fantastic trump blocker since she consistently shovels herself into your deck. So
Val 2.0 can't beat it.
And Val 2.0 can't beat it until that new Regalia comes in, and then we have a flying Val. But I don't want to think about
that. Just throw a Heron and you laugh at it.
Yes. Or, you know, an Artemis bow while using Arla.
And then you have a dice slice to make it even worse.
There it is. On to the next one drop. I'm definitely running a Percival. I like the fact that she helps me search for Deep Blue the Phantom board. I also run Laevateinn, which is, you know, it's more targets for her. And I also tend to run a Lancelot because it is one of the better 2-drop fires in the game, especially since you can beef it up depending on if you have your Phantom board. So she's almost never really dead. And also the fact that she can trump herself to protect a fellow knight such as Lancelot, or trump herself to
protect the ruler.
Yes, protect your ruler, which we will typically be using very aggressively. It's nice, especially for such a low cost, and I definitely feel that she is pretty much a good reason to run white in this deck.
It's okay. Double Flame still beats you.
True. But at the very least, we're not as vulnerable to other things. Speaking of...
I mean, Double Flames beats a lot of things. But
Double Flames beats a lot of things, yes. If you're flipping your ruler when you know someone's running black and you see 2 black reds and 2 blacks, then you're doing something wrong there.
You cry.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Speaking of, the next one drop that we have is Alice's Little Scout. I definitely love running her because Deep Blue, she is a soldier, as a lot of folks tend to know. It is nice to pay 2 flash in from your deck, block and draw. I definitely want to try and bring in a lot of draw into this deck because, as I keep saying, Deep Blue Phantom board is a fantastic card to have, and it's definitely something that really helps with mana fixing more than anything else. And it's nice to just... It is definitely a nice card because it does deck thin, and it's a pretty decent blocker. Just, you know, at the very least, not taking that damage is something that I want to allow to continue. And for the last one drop, I run 2 Alice's Little Guardian. It's definitely a fantastic card if you're trying not to die because you can banish it to prevent all damage that a Resonator would be doing. Even though it costs 1 green and I essentially run no green, Deep Blue the Phantom board basically takes care of everything because I can either flash it in from my deck, or the fact that it can mana fix all of my blue to be green is just it's definitely a card that I would run.
Green / red.
Yes, all blues are green / red. Moving on to the other Resonators, I run 3 lands.
My question is, would you consider running the other soldiers?
As far as the other soldiers go, I'm not entirely sure. Alice's Little Assault Squad is kind of nice, but I'm running low on Resonators, and it just kind of feels like if I'm going to run a red Resonator, I want it to be something like Lance. I want it to be something like Little Red the Matchstick Girl. And also, I kind of don't feel as though Little Supply Squad is that much worth it, since restanding is nice and all, but having to pay the extra white and depending on having to have that white on my field, which is like...
I mean, it's a 1-drop Resonator, like...
Yeah, but it's most effective...
I mean, let's be honest here, if it was basically power supply unit, it'd be broken as fuck for a 1-drop.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying that the card is bad, it's just not something I would run on this deck. Same thing with,
I mean, resetting Lancelot swinging in for 1,000 again sounds nice.
Yeah, it does sound nice, but for now... This is what I'm running.
Alright.
Speaking of, we have the Lancelot here. It's a 2-drop red. We all know what Lancelot basically does. A 6/6 with swiftness. You can tap your reds to make them ridiculous. And with Deep Blue the Phantom board on board, everything's a red. So it really helps out with the early aggression if you have what you require for the early aggression. The next 2-drop Resonator I choose to run, definitely one of the more effective fairy tales from the set, is Little Matchstick Girl. She is a 2-drop, but don't be fooled. Typically, you're going to pay...
She's not a 2-drop.
basically. But you're definitely going to want to have more stones on the field so you can tap to activate her awakening. She can get the matchsticks from your deck or from your graveyard, depending on how much extra mana you pay. She could be a 2-drop, she could be a 3, 4, 5, or a maximum of 6. Typically,
she's basically a 2-mana Etna, but
basically, except instead of
freezing everything, she just kills them off.
Yes, because don't forget, with every Magic Matchstick that you have in hand, she can just drop it to do 400. Which is another great thing about having Cheshires in this deck, is that you can quickly go into Matchstick Scrolls, you can quickly go into Matchsticks. And before long, more often than not, whenever I throw down the little Matchstick girl, I typically throw her down for 3. Because I tend to have 2 or 3 Matchsticks already in hand, and turn 3, 1200 damage is pretty much enough to clear a lot of boards depending on various circumstances. So there's always that. She's definitely an effective card, and she's also great to be grabbed by Alice when, if you have enough mana stones available and like you're able to flip Alice to Valkyrie. And for the last 2-drops, as of right now, I only run 2 Cinderella, the Valkyrie of Glass. She is an amazing card because as soon as she
recycles herself.
Yeah, she recycles herself, and as soon as she hits board, she gets +6/+0 for a token. The token does go away the moment she swings.
Token.
Oh, counter, yes. But
she gave a token.
Huh?
Amazing.
That would be amazing. But for now, she gets a counter on her, and the counter will stay forever if you have Alice and Valkyrie flipped on board, but if you don't, then it goes away. But then again, you can also play 2 blue to bring her back. I think she is pretty effective in this deck, but she's definitely more of a Valentina-esque card with the flashing in and bouncing back.
Hey.
Yeah, hey! So that's typically, as of right now, why I run her at 2. Moving on to the more expensive creatures.
Yeah, Snow White.
We have Snow White, which as of now I run at 4. She is definitely the main mid-game aggression.
That'll work, man.
Absolutely, and being able to throw down with other cards, bring her in, such as Flame King Shout, and just swinging in, hurting the things that that are suddenly much lower due to Flame King Shout, and pinging things off is fantastic. And the fact that Alice the Valkyrie can keep her with her tokens just makes her just a ridiculous card in and of itself, because she just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's more and more of a pain for your opponent to deal with. And the fact that you can just, with 5 mana, flip Alice the Valkyrie, add Snow White to hand, and then just throw her down then it's a great feeling. And the last card that we run, I run a Little Dread, the Fake Red Moon. I just feel as though, as a 1-drop, not as a 1-drop, but as a 1-up in this deck, she's definitely a fantastic utility. You can draw into her very quickly if you need it, depending on what your situation is.
She's the only no, sorry.
And yeah, she is one of the. Actually, no.
She's one of the few cards that can actually take control of your opponent's cards.
Absolutely, which is great. And definitely, I will never run her at. I would never drop her at 3. I would always drop her at about 5 or 6, depending on, because she can seal games, or at the very least change the tide of them if required. That's why I feel as though she should be at the very least 1 over Susanoo as of now, especially since in the meta that I've seen this far. I don't know how it is at your source, but I typically don't see a lot of dragon decks. So yeah,
Not dragon decks, dragon rulers.
there's that. So moving on to the spells, I run 4 Deep Blue the Phantom board. This is one of the main play pieces in your deck. The fact that if you draw into it, gets the extra mana is fantastic for feeding into Alice's God's Art is great. The fact that this card mana fixes though is definitely something that I definitely aspire to have as soon as possible. And if your ruler is any of the newer Alice's,
No, just those 2.
Just those 2? If it's Alice the Valkyrie or Alice the State of Healing, it is a very effective card because you could just...
Or Alice the Same, or the girl looking at Alice.
Absolutely. You can tap, pay 2 to flash in a soldier, which is definitely why we have those in this deck. And yeah, the ability to get extra mana if you draw into this is pretty stellar. Definitely something that I recommend running at 4. As for the rest of the regalia, as of now, I only run Laevateinn at 3. I definitely decided to run Laevateinn because of its ability to quickly boost Alice of Valkyrie's effect up to be ridiculous. Every time I have another Laevateinn is one of the few regalia that can be drawn for mana, but I almost never do. I always bring the other one out and just double tap both of them for an extra 800 damage, which most things pretty much can't survive with this ability on. And if you draw 3, it's going to be a very bad day for someone. It is definitely a worthwhile card, and giving Alice swiftness and imperishable is fantastic. The only change I would ever make to this card is possibly adding a 4th one if I ever find myself in that sort of situation. Now, on to the spells that actually cost anything.
What are you talking about? You never play those. Those are free.
Absolutely. You're right. Speaking of, these are basically free. I almost never use them for the intended effect. You can pay 1 to add this to a monster. It will give it swiftness and first strike. And you can banish this card to deal 200 damage to an opponent's Resonator, which is fancy, but at the same time, if you have Little Matchstick Girl, then these just do 400 to target J-Res. So if you want, you could burn down your opponent's J-Ruler. You can burn down various other monsters. It's definitely a great play, in my opinion, especially after you just did Dance of the Valkyrie, and then the next turn, if you have the right amount of mana on board to be able to burn down their field once more. It's definitely a great card to use. I almost always try and hard mulligan to as many Magic Matchsticks as I can, so that way it costs less and less to use Magic Matchstick Girl a lot sooner as well.
You don't have to get all of them.
You don't have to get all of them, that is true. And
Stop being greedy.
Greed is all I'm good at.
I know you taught you to be greedy, but stop being greedy.
Yep. And the last spell I run is the cost 3. It's a flanking shout. They are very much fantastic for throwing down Lancelot and swinging in. But more often than not, I use this card in conjunction with Snow White, yes, Snow White, to burn down the field, bring out the 5/7, and start swinging in ASAP. The pings really help knock down opponent's monsters that somehow survived the onslaught from the 4 at on the typical turn 3. It's definitely a card I'd recommend using. I'm not entirely sure how well 3 is doing for me, but we'll find that out with more testing as we do most things. And that would be it as of now. Do we have any?
Side deck Grim?
I would probably side deck Grim, yes.
Would you consider main decking Grim instead of Alice?
I've been thinking about it at times, but Alice definitely brings in her own set of interestingness to play, since she could be highly offensive and clear an entire field very swiftly, especially with Laevateinn. The one thing that Alice Valkyrie has over Grim as of now is just the fact that she can flip and just change the game on the drop of a dime. But I would also definitely suggest, having Grim in the side deck and having a few things in there as well to make it a full-on fairy tale deck, especially since it's really nice that you can tutor any mana to utilize fairy tales, so mana fixing becomes a little bit less of an issue. As of now, though, is there any other questions you happen to have, Captain Mudkip? Or Captain Tim, pardon me.
Co-Captain Mudkip, thank you very much.
Co-Captain Mudkip, yes. Which, by the way, look forward to meeting our mysterious leader in an episode nearby.
Never, apparently.
Which might be never, but it's always good to hold out hope.
What is hope?
As of now, though, this has been Guy. Thank you very much for taking time to meet us and greet us and find out the crazy wild decks that we've been building. Look forward to more. Thank you very much for your time.
So you're going back to Guy now?
I'm going back. Well, it's an easy name. I'll figure out a new one. Feel free to post a new name for me in the comments below. Thank you very much. Don't forget to be awesome.